Every parent wants to give their child a better life than they had. But there's one gift that too many parents forget to give, and it isn't a toy, a vacation, or even a good school. It's financial literacy, and its absence is quietly shaping the next generation into adults who earn well but still feel broke. Think about your own childhood for a moment. Did anyone ever sit you down and explain what a credit score actually was? Did anyone teach you the difference between an asset and a liability before you turned 18? For most of us, the answer is no. We learned about photosynthesis, the French Revolution, and the Pythagorean theorem, but nobody taught us how compound interest works, for us or against us. So we grew up, got our first paycheck, and learned everything the hard way. Late fees, debt traps, impulse purchases we couldn't afford. Lessons that cost us real money to learn. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Schools are not going to fix this. The responsibility falls on parents. And the earlier this education starts, the stronger the foundation becomes. Financial habits are formed far earlier than most people realize. Psychologists have found that by the age of 7, a child's core money habits are already taking shape. 7 years old. Before most kids can even do long division, their brain is already forming beliefs about spending, saving, and self-control. So what happens when this window is missed? We get what we see all around us today, adults who are intelligent, hardworking, even highly paid, but who still live paycheck to paycheck, not because they don't earn enough, but because nobody ever taught them how to manage what they earn. They fall for the trap of instant gratification. They see money as something to spend the moment it arrives, rather than a tool to be directed with intention. This is where the story of every financially secure adult actually begins. Not in their 20s when they got serious about investing, but in their childhood, in small everyday moments most people don't even remember. A child given a small allowance and told to divide it into spending, saving, and giving is silently absorbing a lesson that will echo for decades. A child who watches a parent pause before an impulse purchase, who hears the words, "let's wait and think about it," is learning delayed gratification without ever sitting through a single lecture. Money lessons are rarely taught through words. They are absorbed through observation. Every time a parent argues about bills in front of their child, every time a parent overspends to keep up appearances, every time a parent avoids the topic of money entirely out of discomfort, the child is learning something. The question is never whether children are learning about money from their parents. They always are. The only question is whether that education is intentional or accidental. In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through the financial lessons every parent must teach their kids. Practical, age-appropriate lessons that don't require a finance degree to teach, only intention and consistency. Let's start with the most foundational lesson of all: the difference between want and need. This sounds simple, almost too simple, but it is the single most important filter a child can develop before they ever touch real money. A need keeps you fed, sheltered, healthy, and safe. A want is everything else: the toy, the branded sneakers, the extra snack at the checkout counter. Most adults still struggle with this distinction well into their 40s. So imagine the advantage a child gains if they learn to pause and ask, "Is this a want or a need?" before the age of 10. The best way to teach this isn't through a lecture, it's through a simple game. Next time you're at a store together, ask your child to sort items into 2 mental buckets, want or need, before anything goes into the cart. Let them make the call. Let them be wrong sometimes. The goal isn't perfection, it's building the reflex of pausing before spending. The second lesson is one that even most adults never fully grasp: the idea that money has to be actively directed or it disappears without a trace. This is where the classic 3-jar system becomes so powerful. Give a child their allowance, and instead of handing it over as one lump sum, split it into 3 jars: spend, save, and give. The spend jar is for something small and immediate. The save jar is for something bigger, something that takes patience. And the give jar teaches perhaps the most overlooked lesson of all: that money isn't just a tool for the self, it's also a tool for impact on others. This simple physical act of dividing money into 3 jars does something a bank app never could. It makes money tangible. Children see it, touch it, and physically choose where a portion goes. And because they made the choice themselves, they take ownership of the outcome. The third lesson is patience, or more specifically, delayed gratification. This is the single trait, more than intelligence, more than talent, that separates people who build wealth from people who don't. And it can be taught with something as small as a savings goal. If your child wants a new toy that costs $20, don't simply buy it for them. Instead, help them save toward it. Let them watch the total grow week by week. Let them feel the specific kind of pride that only comes from earning something through patience, rather than receiving it instantly. Because here's the truth, very few parents say out loud, every time you buy your child something the moment they want it, you are not making them happy. You are quietly teaching them that waiting is unnecessary, a lesson that will cost them dearly the day a credit card enters their life. Now, let's talk about a lesson most parents avoid entirely, simply because it makes them uncomfortable. Earning. Not chores done for free out of family duty, those matter too, but they're different. This is about giving children the direct experience of trading effort for money, even in small amounts. A lemonade stand, extra tasks beyond the basic household responsibilities, helping a neighbor. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is the child feeling, in their own hands, the connection between effort and reward. Because here's what happens when this connection is never built. Money starts to feel like something that simply arrives, from a parent, from a gift, from somewhere out there. And a child who grows up seeing money as something that just appears grows into an adult who struggles to respect its value. They spend carelessly because, on some subconscious level, they still believe more will simply show up when needed. The fourth lesson, and one of the most powerful, is teaching children to understand debt before debt ever finds them. Not with jargon, not with interest rate formulas, but with a simple, honest analogy. Borrowing money is like borrowing a toy from a friend, except this friend charges you extra for every day you keep it. The longer you hold on to that borrowed toy, the more it costs you, even if you never play with it again. This single analogy, planted early, can prevent an entire adulthood of credit card traps and minimum payment spirals. Consider showing older children, particularly teenagers, a simple example. An item bought on credit for $100, left unpaid for a year at a typical credit card interest rate, can end up costing significantly more than its original price, sometimes $20, $30 more, just for the privilege of delaying payment. When children see this concrete example, debt stops being an abstract adult concept and becomes something they instinctively want to avoid. The fifth lesson is one that even sounds strange to say out loud in most households: talking about money openly without shame. So many parents were raised in homes where money was a taboo topic, discussed only in whispers or in arguments behind closed doors. And that silence gets inherited. The child grows up associating money with tension, secrecy, even fear. Breaking this cycle doesn't require a formal sit-down conversation. It can be as simple as saying, at dinner, "This month we saved extra because we skipped eating out, and here's what we're going to do with that money instead." Small, honest, ordinary conversations, repeated over years, do more to build financial confidence than any single lesson ever could. Because the goal was never to raise a child who is simply good with money. The goal is to raise a child who is not afraid of it, not ashamed of it, and not controlled by it. The sixth lesson, and one that becomes especially important as children grow into their teenage years, is understanding the true cost of comparison. Social media, peer pressure, the newest phone, the latest trend, all of it whispers the same lie: that happiness is one purchase away. Teach your child, gently and repeatedly, that other people's spending is not a scoreboard to compete against. The kid with the newest sneakers might be sitting on debt their parents will spend years paying off. The family that looks the wealthiest on the outside is sometimes the one struggling the most behind closed doors. Wealth that is visible is not always wealth that is real. This leads directly into the seventh lesson. Teaching children, especially as they near their teenage years, the basic concept of making money work for them, rather than only working for money. You don't need to explain compound interest with a spreadsheet. A simple story works better. Two friends start saving at the same monthly amount, but one starts 5 years earlier than the other. By retirement, the one who started earlier ends up with significantly more. Not because they saved more money overall, but because their money simply had more time to grow. Time, more than income, is often the single greatest advantage in building wealth. And the earlier a child understands this, the more that advantage compounds, quite literally, across their entire life. The eighth and final lesson circles back to something we touched on earlier, but it deserves to be said on its own. Modeling matters more than any lesson you'll ever explicitly teach. Children don't remember most of what we tell them, but they remember everything they watch us do. If you want your child to save, they need to see you saving. If you want them to think before spending, they need to watch you pause before a purchase, out loud, so they can hear the reasoning behind it. If you want them to give generously, they need to witness generosity in your own life, not just hear you praise it in theirs. None of these lessons require wealth to teach. A family with a modest income can raise a child with excellent financial habits, while a wealthy family can just as easily raise a child who is financially reckless. This was never about how much money is in the house. It was always about how that money is discussed, handled, and modeled day after day in the small, quiet moments that children absorb far more than we realize. So here is the real takeaway. You don't need a finance degree to raise a financially intelligent child. You need intention. You need consistency. And you need the willingness to have conversations about money that your own parents may never have had with you. Because the family patterns around money don't have to repeat themselves forever. They can be rewritten, starting with the very next conversation you have with your child. Give them what so many of us never received. Not just an inheritance of money, but an inheritance of understanding. That is the gift that will outlast every toy, every trend, and every trip. And it is the one gift no market crash, no recession, and no bad decade can ever take away from them.